Welcome back. Right now we have author Femi Fadugba joining us today. He has written an all-new, powerful science fiction book called The Upper World. So excited to be talking with Femi today. How are you? Thanks for joining us. And Femi, we're not hearing you quite yet. I'm sure we'll be able to resolve that, or you might actually be on mute. But this book has been described as a mind-bending science fiction adventure. So tell me all about it, if you can hear us.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay.
Sounds great, yes.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so again, thanks for having me. The Upper World is a story about a 16-year-old boy named Esso, who's based in Peckham. As you said, it's a science fiction thriller. And Esso, a Londoner, basically is wedged between two very different friendship groups. So on the one side, he's got a friend of fun-loving, sort of book-loving friends. And the other side, he's got mates from his area who are someone who are ganged off and pulling him into life and death situations. And then he's got a girl in the front row named Nadia, who he's obsessed with, and he's trying to figure out how to tell her that he's obsessed with her. But one day he's running to catch bus 36 to school, and he sees a boy about to get run over, and he decides to save him. And in the act of pushing this boy out of the way of a Range Rover, Esso himself gets knocked out, not just out of consciousness, but out of reality as we know it, and into this place called the Upper World. Now, the Upper World is a place where Esso can see time the way that physics describes it. I have a background in physics as a sort of former quantum physicist. And so I wanted to almost just describe that. So his reality, he can see time flattened. So on the left-hand side, the moment he was born, he can see. On the right-hand side, the moment he will die, he can see. And he manages to step inside one of these projections of the future, and he sees the end of his day. And him, his mates, the girl he loves, all have bullets crisscrossing in the air in slow motion. And so he realizes when he gets chucked out of the upper world and back into the normal world that he has until the end of the day to figure out how to stop this thing that he's seen happening. And him and all of his loved ones died. So yeah, it's a thrill ride. Takes place over the course of the day.
And Femi, you mentioned your background is in quantum physics. What gave you the inspiration to write this book? Did this come while you were studying quantum physics, or how did you decide to bring all of these elements together and create this incredible story?
Yeah, I think a few inspirations. I think to write a book, which is a bit of a marathon of an undertaking, you have to have a few reasons, very good reasons for it. I think for me, there was a couple of pivotal incidents. One was the fact that when I was at uni, I actually got a prize for one of the papers I wrote and a few other things at the Houses of Parliament, and I got asked to speak there. It's an incredible event, sort of equivalent of going to Congress and speaking here. But the very same day I went back to home, and there'd been a kid right at the bottom of the stairs who'd been stabbed. And it was just such a sharp contrast of different realities. And I think my upbringing, which has been in a few different places, has always been a lot of contrast. And so I think on a personal level, there was a desire to reconcile some of these worlds. Like on the one hand, I'm doing sort of quantum physics stuff at Oxford. On the other hand, you know, I'm in environments where kids are getting stabbed for not very good reasons. So that was one reason, but I think also just, I think I was lucky. When I was 15 or so, maybe a bit younger, I had a teacher who taught me a lot of things in terms of physics. He got me interested in physics at a time when I was really rubbish at school, and it changed my life. And I think just the opportunity to combine those lessons about how miraculous and mysterious the universe we live in, as well as real life things that teenagers today go through, while also entertaining them through a narrative was something that appealed to me.
This is a science fiction book, yet you studied quantum physics. So I'm curious, you mentioned the main character is examining past, present, future, wanting to change a big event. You wonder about the butterfly effect, but it is science fiction, as I mentioned. It sounds like there are some truths and some actual quantum physics principles that play into this. How would you describe all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you the 30-second explanation of time travel, if that's helpful. I mean, so the really long and short of it is Einstein, when he was around, I mean, the way we think about time is there's some sort of like grandfather clock, an invisible grandfather clock out there, and it's ticking, and everything is synchronized to it, and that's how we keep time. And there's only one clock, and that's the absolute truth. But what Einstein proved was that actually time is relative, and it's almost more like everything in every place, there's a different clock ticking at its own rate. So they're roughly the same, but they're ticking at their own rate. And so the other thing that Einstein realized is that the faster something moves, the slower time moves for it. And so the extreme limit of this is if you go at the speed of light, the fastest speed you can go, time almost seems to stop. And so you can have something like a light beam that comes from the sun to the earth. That journey takes 8 minutes in our perspective, but for the light beam, the beginning, middle, and end of that journey all happen at the same time because time is flat for it. And so the upper world is an attempt to take that view of time where past, present, and future are equally real and equally present and put that into a physical world that you can see. So it's not just me explaining it through abstract physics, you can actually see it. And if you understand the scene, then you understand the physics.
Yeah, this book is incredibly intriguing. You have this young adult with these fantasy elements in the story, but also elements of physics. So definitely something everyone's going to want to read. But not only that, it's also already being developed into a movie, which is very exciting for your first book. So what can you tell me about that, and how can we get your book?
Yeah, sure. So it's available wherever you buy books normally, whether that's online through the big retailers or sort of your indie publishers, as well as the brick and mortar bookshops as well. So it's available. It's quite easy to get. Have a look. In terms of the film, it was definitely a bit of a wild one, if I'm being honest, because it's my debut. It happened during Corona. So on the one hand, the world is kind of melting and turning upside down. And on the other hand, I'm having a 15-way auction for the book, followed by Netflix and Daniel Kaluuya. Also wanting to be involved. So it's exciting. So Daniel Kaluuya will be starring and producing it, as well as Eric Neiman's company, Brand Electric. They make Narcos and Bright. And so it's just incredible to have that ambitious and talented of a team behind this project, and the fact that it'll get a second lease of life on the screen.
It is very exciting. And I have to ask, I don't know if you can tell me, but are you going to be writing future books? Have you already written some?
So I am deep into book 2. So I'm writing the sequel for The Upper World. It's a prequel sequel, almost kind of like The Godfather. So it takes place before and after the events of book 1, kind of sandwiches it. So you see where these kids came from in terms of their parents' generation, but also what happens after the original. And so I'm excited about that. And it should be a nice continuation to a lot of the themes that I explored in book 1.
Well, I'm excited there's going to be a second book, and congratulations, Femi, for not only having this incredible debut novel, but also for having it become a movie. So big things are happening. Thanks so much to Femi Fadugba for joining us today right here on Mountain Connections. The book is called The Upper World. It just came out, and you can get it wherever books are sold. We'll be back with more here on Mountain Connections right after this.